The hidden power of making people chase you. You've been doing it backwards. You've been chasing approval, chasing attention, chasing validation, trying to convince people of your worth, trying to prove yourself, trying to make them see you, and the harder you chase, the further they pull away, the less they value you, the more they take you for granted, and you wonder why you wonder what you're doing wrong. You wonder why, despite all your effort, all your availability, all your willingness to please, people don't seem to appreciate, you don't seem to pursue, you don't seem to value what you're offering. And here's the truth. You don't want to hear. It's because you're too available, too eager, too desperate to be chosen. And desperation, no matter how you dress it up, no matter how you justify it, no matter how much you call it, caring desperation repels people, while scarcity attracts them. And you've made yourself abundant, made yourself common, made yourself the option that's always there, and what's always there loses its power, loses its mystery, loses its value, because value isn't just about what you are. It's about how rare you are, how hard you are to access, how much you make people work to earn your time, your energy, your presence. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't chase, they didn't beg, they didn't prove themselves to people who didn't see their worth. They focused on their own path, on their own character, on their own mission, and the byproduct. The natural consequence of that focus was that people chased them. People wanted their time, their wisdom, their presence, because it wasn't freely given, because it had to be earned, because they made themselves valuable through scarcity, through standards, through the quiet power of knowing their worth and not needing anyone else to confirm it. And if you're tired of being taken for granted, tired of giving more than you receive, tired of being the one who always reaches out, always shows up, always tries, then what you're about to learn will fundamentally shift how people see you, how they treat you, how they value you. Because you're going to stop chasing and you're going to start building. And when you build, when you focus, when you become scarce, people don't walk toward you, they run. Let me be direct about something most people won't tell you. The reason people don't chase you is because they don't have to. You're always available, always responsive, always. There you answer. Immediately, you rearrange your schedule, you drop everything when they call you, make yourself easy, you make yourself convenient, you remove all friction, and in removing that friction, in making yourself that accessible, you've removed all the tension, all the mystery, all the challenge, and challenge is what creates attraction. Effort is what creates value, scarcity is what creates desire, and you've given them none of that. Here's what happens when you're too available. Someone texts you and you respond in 30 seconds. They know you were waiting. They know you're not busy. They know you don't have anything better to do. And that knowledge, even subconsciously, it lowers your value in their eyes. Not because they're bad people, but because humans. We value what's scarce, what's hard to get, what requires effort, and you require none. Someone asks for your time and you say yes, immediately, no hesitation, no checking your schedule, no consideration of what you're sacrificing to make room for them, just instant availability. And they learn that your time has no competing demands, that you have no priorities that rank above them, that you're not selective about who gets access. And if you're not selective, if you don't value your own time, why should they? Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. People wanted his attention, his time, his favor constantly. And he could have given it, could have made himself available to everyone, could have tried to please everyone, but he didn't, because he understood that a leader who's accessible to everyone is valuable to no one. That scarcity of access is what maintains power, maintains value, maintains the respect that allows you to actually lead. And he wrote, confine yourself to the present. And what he meant is this focus on what you're doing, on your mission, on your work, and let people come to you. Let them earn your attention. Let them prove they deserve the time you're giving up. Because time is the only resource you never get back. And giving it freely to everyone who asks is not generosity, it's self-destruction. I know someone who was always the friend everyone called when they needed something, needed advice, needed help, needed a favor, and they'd always say, yes, always drop everything, always show up. And they thought this made them valuable, thought it made them a good friend, thought it would make people appreciate them, but it didn't. It made people use them, made people take them for granted, made people see them as the backup plan, the reliable option when nothing better was available. And one day they got tired. They stopped answering. Immediately, stopped saying yes to everything, stopped being available on everyone else's terms. And something interesting happened. People started valuing them more, started reaching out differently, started actually asking if they had time instead of assuming they did. Because scarcity, because the removal of instant availability, it created something that hadn't been there before. Respect Epictetus taught his students that freedom comes from wanting nothing, and when you want nothing from others, when you don't need their approval, their attention, their validation, you automatically become more attractive, more valuable, more magnetic because you're not chasing them. They're wondering why you're not chasing them. And that wondering, that curiosity, that gap between what they're used to and what you're giving them, it creates tension, and tension creates attraction. So here's the first shift you need to make. Stop being instantly available. Stop responding immediately. Stop dropping everything when someone calls, not because you're playing games, not because you're being manipulative, but because you're actually busy, because you actually have priorities, because you actually value your time enough to protect it. And when someone reaches out, you take time to respond, not days, not playing hard to get, but hours enough to show that you were doing something that mattered more than checking your phone. And in that delay, in that small friction, you're communicating something important. My time has competing demands. My attention isn't free. My presence has to be earned. The second reason people don't chase you is simpler. You haven't built anything worth chasing. You're trying to make people value you through availability, through effort, through how much you give. But none of that creates value. Value comes from what you are not from. What you give from what you've built, not from what you offer from the person you're becoming, not from how accommodating you are. And right now, you're trying to compensate for lack of value with excess availability. And it doesn't work because people don't chase easy, they chase valuable. Here's the harsh truth. If you removed your availability, if you stopped being the person who's always there, always helpful, always accommodating, what would be left? What do you have? What have you built? What makes you actually valuable beyond your willingness to serve? And for a lot of people, the answer is uncomfortable because they've spent so much time trying to please others, trying to be useful, trying to be needed, that they never built anything for themselves, never developed their own skills, their own mission, their own life. That's interesting. Independent of others. And without that, without intrinsic value, availability is all they have, and availability alone is not enough. Marcus Aurelius didn't have power just because he was emperor. He had power because he was wise, because he was disciplined, because he'd built character that people recognized and respected, and his position, his title, that just gave him the platform. But the value, the thing that made people actually want his time, his wisdom that came from what he'd built internally, from the work he'd done on himself, from the person he'd become. And that's what you're missing. You're trying to be valuable through what you do for others instead of through who you are, and who you are is built in private, is built through discipline, through work, through the daily practice of becoming someone worth chasing, not because of what you offer, but because of what you are. I've watched people transform this completely. Someone who was always the agreeable one, always the helper, always the person everyone called, when they needed something and they were exhausted, they were drained, they were taken for granted, and one day they stopped being available, stopped helping, stopped saying yes, and they redirected all that energy into themselves, into building their skills, their business, their body, their mind, and within months, people started treating them differently. Not because they became mean, not because they played games, but because they became interesting, became valuable, became someone who was clearly going somewhere. And people want to be around people who are going somewhere. People want access to people who are building something. People chase value, and value is built, not performed, Seneca wrote. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants, and the same applies to attraction, to influence, to having people chase you. It's not about having more to offer, it's about needing less from them, and the less you need, the more they want to give. The less you chase, the more they pursue. The less available you are, the more they value your time, because scarcity creates demand, and demand creates pursuit. So here's the second shift. Stop trying to be valuable through what you do for others, and start being valuable through what you build for yourself. Take the energy you're spending on pleasing, on accommodating, on being available, and redirect it into your mission, into your growth, into becoming someone who doesn't need to chase, because what they've built is worth being chased for. And that shift, that reorientation from external to internal, from giving to building, from pleasing to becoming, it changes everything. The third reason people don't chase you is because you have no standards. You accept whatever people give you, whatever effort they make, whatever treatment you receive. You take it, you tolerate it, you convince yourself it's fine. And in doing so, you teach people that you don't have to be earned that access to. You is free, that your time, your energy, your presence doesn't require any real effort. And people, we don't value what we don't work for. We don't appreciate what comes easy. We don't chase what's already ours. Here's what this looks like. Someone treats you casually, puts in minimal effort, shows up inconsistently, and you accept it. You're still there, still available, still waiting. And they learn that they can have you without really trying, that they can keep you around with the bare minimum, that you don't require much. And so they don't give much because you've shown them they don't have to. And this isn't about playing hard to get. This isn't about games. This is about having actual standards, about knowing your worth, about understanding that your time, your energy, your presence, these things have value, and value requires investment. And if someone isn't willing to invest, if they're not willing to put in real effort, if they're not willing to show up consistently, then they don't get access. It's that simple. Marcus Aurelius had standards. He didn't entertain fools, didn't waste time on people who weren't serious, didn't make himself available to those who hadn't earned it. And those standards, that selectivity, it didn't make people avoid him. It made people work harder to earn his time, to prove themselves worthy, to demonstrate they deserved access. Because standards create value, and value creates chase. Epictetus taught that we should be careful who we allow into our inner circle, that we should associate with people who improve us, who challenge us, who are worthy of our time and energy. And that selectivity, that standard, it's not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's understanding that you become like the people you spend time with. And if you spend time with everyone, if you have no filter, if you accept any level of effort, then you're not respecting yourself. And people sense that. They sense when someone doesn't value themselves, and they treat them accordingly. I watched someone completely transform their relationships by simply implementing standards they used to accept, breadcrumbs, used to tolerate inconsistency, used to be there for people who were never there for them, and they were always disappointed, always hurt, always feeling undervalued. And one day they stopped. They set a standard. They decided that anyone who wanted their time, their energy, their presence had to earn it, had to show up, had to be consistent, had to reciprocate. And at first, people were shocked. Some people left. Some people got angry. Some people accused them of changing, and had they changed from someone who accepted anything to someone who required effort. And the people who stayed, the people who stepped up, the people who actually met the standard, those relationships became deeper, became real, became mutual, because now both people were investing. Both people were showing up. Both people valued what they had, because it required effort to maintain. Seneca wrote, "If you wish to be loved, love," but he didn't mean give yourself away freely. He meant love yourself. First, respect yourself. First, have standards for yourself and for how others treat you, because self-love isn't accepting everything. It's requiring that people meet you at your level, that they match your effort, that they earn your time. And when you do that, when you have standards, when you make people work for access, they don't resent you, they respect you, they don't avoid you, they chase you, because what's hard to get is worth having, and you've made yourself hard to get, not through games, but through genuine standards. So here's the third shift. Stop accepting whatever people give you and start requiring that they earn you. Set standards for how you're treated, for the effort people make, for the consistency they show. And when people don't meet those standards, you don't negotiate, you don't lower them, you simply withdraw your availability. Not as punishment, but as self-respect, because your time is too valuable to give to people who don't value it. The fourth reason people don't chase you is because you need them. You need their validation, their approval, their attention. And that need, that dependency, it's repulsive, because people are attracted to independence, to wholeness, to people who are complete without them. And you're showing them through your actions, through your energy, through your availability, that you're not complete, that you need them to feel valuable, to feel worthy, to feel like you matter. And that need, that energetic desperation, even when you're not saying it, it pushes people away. Here's how this shows up. You're constantly checking your phone, checking their social media, checking if they responded, checking if they're online, and that checking, that monitoring, it's coming from need, from the need to know that they're thinking about you, that they care, that you matter. And even if you're not telling them, even if you think you're hiding it, they feel it, they sense it. Because energy doesn't lie, and needy energy, it's like a repellent. It makes people pull away, makes them create distance, makes them value you less. Because if you don't value yourself enough to be whole without their attention, why should they value you? Or you're always the one reaching out, always initiating, always checking in, and you tell yourself, you're just being friendly, just maintaining the relationship, just showing you care, but what you're really doing is seeking reassurance, seeking confirmation that you still matter, that they still care, and that seeking, that constant reaching out, it communicates lack, it communicates need, it communicates that you're incomplete without them, and incompleteness isn't attractive. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." And what he meant is this: your peace, your worth, your value. It doesn't come from external validation. It comes from internal alignment, from knowing who you are, from being complete within yourself. And when you're complete, when you're whole, when you don't need others to validate your worth, that completeness, that self-sufficiency, it's magnetic, because it's rare, because most people are walking around desperate for validation, desperate for approval, desperate to be seen. And when someone shows up who doesn't need that, who's complete on their own, who has their own source of worth and purpose, people are drawn to that because it's different, because it's powerful, because it suggests that being around this person might make you more complete too. I know someone who was always seeking approval, always posting, always checking, always needing to know that people cared, and they were exhausted by the constant need for external confirmation. And one day they deleted social media for a month. Just went dark, and at first it was uncomfortable. They felt invisible, felt like they were missing out, felt anxious about what people thought. But then something shifted. They stopped caring, stopped needing to know, stopped measuring their worth by likes and comments and follows, and they started measuring it by what they built, by how they showed up, by who they became. And when they came back, when they re-engaged, everything was different. They weren't needy anymore, weren't seeking, weren't desperate, and people noticed, people reached out. People wanted to know what changed, and what changed was simple. They stopped needing people and started needing themselves. Epictetus taught that freedom and happiness are found in one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. And other people's opinions, other people's attention, other people's validation, those are not within your control. But your own sense of worth, your own purpose, your own completeness, those are. And when you stop seeking control over what you can't control and start building control over what you can, you become free. And freedom is attractive because it's rare, because it's powerful, because it shows that you're not a prisoner to other people's opinions. Seneca said, "Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are." And one of the most unnecessary things, one of the things that seems essential but isn't, is other people's constant validation. You don't need it to be valuable. You don't need it to be worthy. You don't need it to matter. You just need to show up, to build, to become. And the worth, the value, the mattering, it comes from that, not from their approval. So here's the fourth shift. Stop needing people, stop seeking their validation, their approval, their attention, and start building your own source of worth, your own purpose, your own completeness. And when you do, when you show up whole, when you engage from sufficiency instead of need, people don't just notice, they chase, because wholeness is rare and rare is valuable. The fifth reason, and this is the one that connects, everything. People don't chase you because you're not going anywhere. You're standing still, you're waiting, you're available. And people don't chase stationary targets. They chase movement, they chase momentum, they chase people who are clearly on a path, who are building something, who are becoming someone. And you're just there, just waiting, just hoping someone will notice you. And standing still doesn't create attraction. Movement does. Here's the pattern that keeps you stuck. You organize your life around other people, around their availability, their schedule, their needs. You wait for them to make plans to reach out to include you. And while you're waiting, you're not building, not moving, not becoming. You're just in holding pattern, just maintaining, just hoping, and hope without action is just waiting, and waiting is stagnation, and stagnation repels. But when you're moving, when you're building, when you have a clear direction, a mission, a path that you're on, regardless of who comes along, that movement, that forward momentum, it creates something powerful. It creates attraction because people want to be part of something, want to be around people who are going somewhere, want access to the energy, the excitement, the possibility that comes with movement. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for Rome to improve. He moved, he built, he led, and people followed, not because he asked them to, but because he was going somewhere, and they wanted to be part of that, wanted access to that, wanted to move in the same direction. And the same applies to you. When you're moving, when you're building, when you're clearly on a path that matters, people don't need to be convinced. They don't need to be chased. They see where you're going and they want to come along. I've watched this happen over and over. Someone stops waiting, stops organizing their life around other people, and starts building, starts pursuing their mission, their goals, their vision, and suddenly people are interested. Suddenly they're asking questions. Suddenly they want to be included. not because the person changed their personality, but because they changed their direction from stationary to moving, and movement creates curiosity, creates interest, creates the sense that something's happening here and I want to be part of it. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. And that doing, that movement toward what you would be, it's what creates the chase, because you're not waiting for permission, not waiting for inclusion, not waiting for someone to validate your path. You're just moving, and people either keep up or they don't. And the ones who do, the ones who match your pace, who share your direction, who want what you're building, those are the people worth having around. Seneca wrote, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it, and you're wasting it, standing still waiting for people to chase you, when the only way to be chased is to start running towards something that matters more than their approval. So here's the fifth shift. Stop waiting. Stop standing still. Stop organizing your life around other people's availability, and start moving, start building, start pursuing your mission with such focus, such intensity, such clarity that people have to run to keep up. And when you do, when you shift from waiting to moving, from hoping to building, from stationary to momentum, you'll discover something powerful. You don't need to make people chase you. They chase naturally because you're going somewhere they want to go. Here's what ties it all together. Making people chase you isn't about manipulation, isn't about games, isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about becoming someone worth chasing, and that becoming it requires 5 fundamental shifts. You become less available not by playing hard to get, but by actually having priorities that matter more than constant accessibility. You build actual value not by what you do for others, but by who you become. Through your own work, your own growth, your own mission. You set real standards not to filter people out, but to ensure that anyone who has access to you actually values it, actually earns it, actually shows up. You stop needing validation not by pretending you don't care, but by building your worth from internal alignment instead of external approval. And you start moving not to impress people, but because you have somewhere to go, something to build, someone to become. And the byproduct, the natural consequence of those 5 shifts, is that people chase not because you manipulated them, but because you became worth chasing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, and the same applies. Here, waste no more time trying to make people chase you. Become someone worth chasing, and the chase happens naturally." Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what's within our control, and making people chase you by being manipulative, that's trying to control what's external, but becoming someone worth chasing through building, through standards, through movement that's controlling what's internal. And when you control the internal, the external follows. Seneca said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." And the same applies to attraction, to influence, to having people chase you. It's not luck, it's not chance, it's the natural result of preparation, of building, of becoming someone who's valuable, who's scarce, who's moving. So here's what you do. Starting now, you stop chasing, stop seeking, stop waiting, and you start building. Start moving, start becoming, and you make yourself scarce. Not by hiding, but by actually being busy with things that matter. You set standards not to punish people, but to protect your energy for those who deserve it. You stop needing validation, not by pretending, but by building your own source of worth, and you move toward your mission with such clarity, such focus that people have to chase just to be part of it. And when you do all of that, when you make those shifts, you'll discover something profound. You don't need to make people chase you. They chase because you've become the kind of person who's worth chasing, the kind of person who's going somewhere, the kind of person who has something they want to be part of. And that's not manipulation. That's just value. That's just scarcity. That's just the natural law that people pursue. What's rare, and you've made yourself rare, not through games, but through genuine becoming. The hidden power isn't in making people chase you. The hidden power is in becoming someone who doesn't need to be chased, but gets chased anyway, because what you are, what you've built, where you're going, is simply worth it, and worth doesn't beg. Worth doesn't chase. Worth doesn't need worth, just is. And people recognize it, and they move toward it, because that's what people do. They chase value. So stop trying to be chased and start building something worth chasing. Stop trying to be wanted and start being valuable. Stop trying to get people to see you and start becoming someone worth seeing. Because the chase, the attention, the value, it all comes, but only when you stop seeking it and start earning it through who you become. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember the people worth having in your life. They don't chase easy. They chase valuable, so stop being easy and start being valuable, and watch how everything changes. Not because you played games, but because you built something real.